Drinking with Authors may contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Nick Savage, author, artist, and host for Four Horsemen Publications, Drinking with Authors. And we have a wonderful author with us this evening, A.R. Farina. He writes well, tell us about your series. I don't want to mess up because I tend to do that. But I do know that they are an adaptation, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let you talk, so tell us.
Sure. Yes. Hello. Thanks for having me. Long time listener, first time caller. I'm drinking my black coffee because you're hearing this at night, people, but we're recording it in the middle of the day. Yeah, I'm the author of the Austen Chronicles. So they are adaptations, a modern day adaptation of Jane Austen novels set in a shared universe. So the new book just came out just last week, the 11th of October, the third one. I'm halfway through writing the fifth one. It's very exciting stuff. So yeah, so the Austen Chronicles are imagining if all of the Jane Austen's characters lived and knew each other. They each of the book is a standalone, but the characters pop in and out. So it's very shared universe, like Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you've read her book series, like she's got a bunch of different books, but she's got 4 like the Malibu Rising series where that Nick is the character's name, who appears in Daisy Jones and the Six and Malibu Rising and Carrie Soto and Evelyn Hugo. So it's loosely in the same universe. Stephen King does this, right? Like his main characters pop up as side characters in other books. So that's how mine is a series in that way. So yeah, it's set in a modern time though. So you don't have to. And if you've never read an Austen book, that's okay. I still think they're fun.
Well, that does lead me to my first question. But before that, thank you for saying you're drinking coffee. I am drinking a breakfast bourbon tea. No bourbon in it because, as AR pointed out, it is like 2:30 East Coast time right now as we're doing this. And day drinking is a little about 15 years past
That's
me.
So 15 years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you said you're drinking coffee. Dark roast, medium roast, blonde roast?
Yeah, this is a medium. This is a medium right now. Yeah, but black. Nice. I'm a pure sociopath. I don't like anything in there, the first time I ever tried coffee, I put sugar in there and cream in there, and I was like, meh. And then I just drank it the way nature intended. Black death, full caffeination.
Well, I think it also depends on your first coffee you drink, because when I first started drinking coffee, I was working at Baker Square. I'm going to date myself with that Midwest restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was 6 sugars and 3 creams per cup of coffee.
Wow.
And now I will drink iced coffee black.
Yeah, that's the way they do it.
I don't like that. But bringing that around to a question that I think I'm going to have a relative obvious answer to, or you're going to surprise us. Growing up, what was your favorite book or books?
Well, growing up is such a tough. That's tough, right? Because so I will tell you that I was an early reader. I started reading, like I was a whole word reader. I was a bad speller. Still am kind of a bad speller, because I learned to read like just whole words. So by the time I was 3, I was reading, and by the time I was in kindergarten, I was reading the Chronicles of Narnia. So like I loved those forever, and then of course Narnia leads to Tolkien, right? Which leads to. So as a young person, I read a lot of that kind of high fantasy. And then I read some Salinger, and I got into middle school, high school. I started reading Salinger, as one does. And then I, started reading Austen, read some Dickens, started to get into the British novelists, the plotting British book. I love it so much. Oh my God. I'm the person that I know who likes Wuthering Heights. I love that book so much. Because it combines the two things, the weird high fantasy stuff with the plotting British novel. So it really truly depends on where I am. I would say the book I've read the most ever is probably 1984.
Wow. That That is definitely. I find it funny because 1984 it's a very deep book, and there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
being deep. And like, I read a quote the other day about, oh my God, for the love of me, Steinbeck, who said, "I don't write escapism. I write for those who can't escape." And
That's for real.
kind of writing tends to be more realistic and something that sticks with the reader more.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with escapism, but I think when you write something that is a little more real, a little more gets some thinking, and isn't as quite a popcorn beach read, there's something to think about, past that. Like a movie, you walk away from going, that was entertaining, and then you immediately move on to your next subject instead of talking about the movie. A book should have something that you talk about, but I'm surprised that your favorite books, when you started with Narnia, going into Tolkien and stuff like that, what then made you go, I want Austen's characters and not like a modern day put, Bilbo and Gandalf in like Chicago or whatever? Like, what made you go Austen?
That's a great thing. That's a good question. So, I'm an Austen fan, and I will admit to you, as a young person, there's a false claim by the universe, by people who read books, or by people maybe who don't read books, but by people who are aware of Austen, who think she wrote 3 great books and 3 bad books. Now, she has some juvenilia. She has some, like, Sanditon was unpublished. There's a few books that were like published later that she wrote when she was like 15 and 16. But I consider her, she's written these 6 novels. And there's the 3 good, when I was a younger person, there were the 3 good novels, which were Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma. And then when there were the 3 other novels, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Mansfield Park. And so, I just sort of believed the hype because I was dumb. And it was just one of those things. And so I was a bit of an older young person, much younger than I am now. But when I finally sat down to read the other 3 books, and I realized how wrong I was. And so forever and ever, I always thought Emma was maybe one of the funniest books I've ever read. And I still believe Emma is hysterically funny. I love Emma so much. It's so funny. The best adaptation of Emma is Clueless. Amy Hecklering's Clueless is based on Emma, and she captures all the fun and the joy. But I read the other books and immediately realized, like, oh, there's so much more going on here. And so then I revisited the other ones, and it just slowly became a Janeite. I always liked her work, but I think Austen really lends herself to somebody who likes satire, who likes a critical eye, who likes somebody who can have a funny point, like Jonathan. She's very Jonathan Swift was probably one of the people she read a lot. So yeah, and I'm married to a librarian, so my wife is also a Janeite. So we just read them together and just gained more and more appreciation. And in fact, right there's one set. Every room in the house has a full set of Austen novels.
That is wonderful.
Like, my set is different than hers, that's in her office, and we've got a different set in the room, in the living room. So all of that, to your question, was why Jane and not these other things, is I was actually studying Mansfield Park when I was getting my MFA. We were doing deep character analysis. We had to write 2 deep, like 30-page character analyses. And we weren't really thinking, like, don't do the easy thing, right? Don't do Jay Gatsby. Don't do the people everybody has done, because then the scholarship is already done. So even if you're doing Austen, the easy thing to do is to do a character analysis of Darcy, or a character analysis of Lizzie Bennet. So I did the 2 I did. One was Barbara Gordon Batgirl, and that was I enjoyed that deep dive. And then I did Fanny Price from Mansfield Park, and it was in that analysis of her as a character that I realized the layers that were there and the things that people were maybe missing, and that book, I thought, deserved a chance to maybe meet a new audience, that there's a very important story there, but people didn't get to it. It's long. It's 130,000 words. People think Fanny's boring. She marries her first cousin at the end. There's a lot of reasons to not love it. But I loved the character. So that was it. Yeah.
I think when you give people too much to love about a character, it becomes unrealistic. So you got to give them something to not love and make them lovable and hateable at the same time. You got to give someone they love to hate. And because there's nothing, to me at least, there's nothing better than a character who's broken and kind of bad in certain ways, but not bad in the bad ways. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
see,
Like,
that's fascinating because that's actually what people dislike about Fanny Price from the original book. She is unlike all of other Austen's characters who you could be like, she kind of sucks. Like Emma sucks. Emma Woodhouse is a villain. Like in any other book, Emma Woodhouse is a villain. And in my version of Emma, which is the one that is with our publisher right now, with the editor, waiting for Jen's edits. I can't wait to get them back. She is the villain. Like I've made Emma the villain in that book, and Jane Fairfax is the hero. But that is you nailed it though, Nick. Fanny Price is there's nothing. She is virtuous and good, and so people think she's boring. So I had to find the thing. Now, what worked for me is I was a straight edge kid, not like religious straight edge, but I just didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do that stuff, even into college. And so I made people uncomfortable. Like when you're just living your life and you're at a party and everybody's, shit faced, and you're not, they think you're judging them. And
yeah,
so
I understand that.
but I wasn't judging them. I didn't care. But this person's stoned and this person's drunk and this person's, whatever. Um, yeah, I went to school in the 90s, so I'm sure there was some cocaine around. So I didn't do any of that stuff. And so therefore, I could relate to this Fanny Price, this poor kid who's just trying to be good, because I was a poor kid who was just trying to be good. He's on scholarship and all that stuff. So I agree with you. So, but you still have to, so instead of making her unlikable, I had to make her a challenge. I had to put you in her shoes and be like, can you like this person who is genuinely good, but misunderstood? And that was the way in for my version of Fanny, whom I call Junior, because we shouldn't be calling young women Fanny anymore.
Before I get on to my next question, I actually wanted to bring a point to something you said about cocaine of all things. Of all things you said, I'm like, wait, cocaine.
It was the 90s, and I went to school with a bunch of rich kids. I was not one of them. But sometimes I felt like I was living in a Bret Easton Ellis novel. So at a small liberal arts school.
Me and my friends were not rich, but we were friends with the dealer. And so we'd go to these parties and I'd walk in and there'd be like 4 or 5 rails just laid out.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, I am 15 years old. I can barely handle like an old style and a shot of old granddad. What the hell makes you think I want to put this shit up my nose when I already have sinus problems to begin with? Like, and they're like, oh, just have some. It's just fine. Like, no. You'll be fine. It's really nice. I'm like, do you know me sober? Do you think I need that in my system? And I wasn't judging them for doing it, but I was just like, it was very like, I had sinus problems. You know what I'm saying? So I was constantly doing like that, like
snorting thing. They thought you were on it anyway.
All the time. So when I was 21 and we were at the bars and everyone's smoking around me, and because nothing's better than for an asthmatic to smoke, I was smoking at the time and I'm doing that like noise, and they'd be like, hey, let me get some Coke. And I'm like, I don't do Coke. I don't have Coke, as I'm sitting there like blowing my nose and white, and they're like, fuck you. And I'm just like, whatever, dude, like whatever. I just never did, but it is what it is. So I don't judge. But based on what you were talking about with the character and character development, I'm going to ask you a question that you might be like, I don't want to repeat what I just said. What is or are the most important elements to you when it comes to writing, to make good writing?
Oh, so for me, it's everything is character driven. So I am a character first guy. I get to know my characters. When I was in college, straight edge, boring kid, who spent all of his time in the library. My school, for whatever reason, there was these, I went to Albion College in Michigan. So there were these people who graduated years and years ago, rich donors who donated money, and there was a lecture series. So they would bring authors in, that was their donation to the university, was to bring writers in or whatever. So one of the authors that this donation brought in was Gloria Naylor, who died, I think, tragically young, in her 50s. She only wrote a handful of novels, but one of them was called Linden Hills, which is a retelling of Dante's Inferno, where hell is Detroit. And so when you get to the bottom ring of hell, the other side of it is Detroit. It's amazing. It's a great book. I loved it. So I had this opportunity to meet her and be one of the student ambassadors who went out to dinner with her. And one of the things we talked about, and then she discussed in her talk too, is about getting to know your characters. And it stuck with me forever, as this was back in the night, when she was writing that. It was in the 70s and 80s when she was really at her most prolific. When she would get stuck or unsure of what a character would do, she would stop literally what she was doing, and she'd write the character a letter longhand and mail it, and then waited a few days, and then the mail would come, and she'd answer the mail in the character's frame of mind, write herself a letter back to all these questions that she was worried about, like she couldn't get through, and mail it back to herself. And in that week's time that happened, she could stew in the idea, think about what the character would think, and then that would allow her to move forward with whatever the stumbling block was. And that really resonated with me as a character person who loves books that have strong characters, who loves books. Don't get me wrong. Give me a dense plot. I'm here for that. But like, I love character driven stuff. And so for me, if you don't know who your characters are, if you don't know what music your character likes, if you don't know what your character's favorite movie is, if you don't know that stuff, and it doesn't have to come up in the book, but it might. And if you don't know it, then the audience doesn't relate, even if they don't like what they like. So that to me is that you gotta get to know those people.
No, you're 100% correct, because I'll have people going, oh, how do you write? Give me some advice on writing. Give me this, give me that. And I have like my character development books, which are basically just ultra detailed, like character sheets for Dungeons and Dragons that have stuff that you would never use in the tabletop gaming.
Right.
But I tell people, I'm like, you need to know, because I'll get people who give me books and I'll read them and I'll be like, here's this book. And I'm like, okay. And I'll be like, the characters all seem the same. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, when was this character born? I don't know. When was this character born? I don't know. What kind of ice cream do they like? What's their favorite band? What city do they grow up in? How many times did they move? What's their favorite movie? Are they gay? Are they straight? Are they bi? Are they bi-curious? Have they never explored any of these things? Now, of course, that's age appropriate, for stuff like that. I'm not going to ask that, whatever. Have they experienced death in terms of like, are both their parents alive? Have they lost a good friend in a car accident? Have they witnessed anything? Blah, blah, blah. And it may never come up in the book, and you're 1000% correct. But it answers questions to how they will respond to things. If they come from a place, and I don't want to say a place of privilege because that word gets thrown around so much, but if they come from a place of money and not having to worry about how things are going to be obtained, that's very different from people who grew up with less money like us, who are going, let's think about that for the first, for a moment. So just going, sure, give it to me. So I love that. But something you said about her mailing the letters and stuff like that, because that's kind of a writing organizational thing. Like, all right, I'm stuck and I know I need to do things, you know what I'm saying, with the plot, with the character and stuff. So I'm going to write these letters and work out this thing. And there's something to that, because people think organization are like, is my desk clean? And I think organization, and sure as shit, is my desk clean? It's, the character backgrounds, the character sheets, everything like that, the plotting and stuff like that. So I'm going to ask you this. When it comes to your writing, how organized are you?
Well, I mean, so I always say my first and second draft happened before in my head. So I feel very organized. I almost feel like when I'm writing, it happens. I'm sort of it feels sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had these days, but it feels like sometimes it's an out of body experience a little. Like,
always.
I've lost track of 2 hours, and I'm a very, they say you're a plotter, you're a pantser. I am a pantser without a doubt, because I'm not like Tom Robbins notoriously wrote and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote every page. Like, his publisher didn't even edit his novels. They weren't allowed to. That whatever he gave them is what it was. And he would rewrite a paragraph for a week. And that blows my mind. Like, when I sit down to write, I want to, if it's a writing day, I want to get, like, I like a word count in my head. If I don't get to it, that's fine. But for me, like most days that are like writing days, I'm going to write between 1,000 to 2,000 words in that day. And sometimes I'll write 2,000 words in a sitting and I don't even understand. It's like, oh, it's 3 hours later and I've not done anything except live in this place. So I'm very organized in that I know who the characters are, I know where they're going, I have these ongoing conversations with them. Like my writing practice is a contemplative practice, right? So I take a walk, I listen to music, I hang out with them. They all have their own soundtracks. Every character has a song or a band that they love the most, and there's usually one trick song that turns me back in to that character. So the book I'm currently writing um, is book 5 of the series. Is oddly enough, it's a song that from an album, a Green Day album that everybody hates. It's from their Uno Dos Tres series, and there's a song called "Nightlife," which it's a sort of sung rap duo. There's this tattoo artist called Lady Cobra. She really was a nothing, but she's on this song, and the Mike's bass line is so awesome. And if I turn that on, Kat, my character that I'm working on, it gets me into her space. So if I can't just sit down and start writing, put on Nightlife, 3 minutes later, and that's it. And I'm done. I'm in it and I'm there. So I'd say I'm very organized because I know what the characters like and don't like. And when I try out new music on them that I think the character would like, if it doesn't work, I stop it. So I listen to music while I'm writing, like music with words. Like I'm listening to Green Day albums. I'm listening to Cake. I'm listening to this album, the Linda Lindas. She loves the Linda Lindas. So I've got the Linda Lindas going. I'm listening to the Linda Lindas album and I'm writing. If I try a new album or something, I'm like, oh, Kat might like this. And if I get stuck, I realize it's the music. It's not, it's me. It's not her.
That's actually true. I have an album that I have listened to a obsessive amount of times because I just put it on and it gets me into the mindset and this and that. And if I
Yeah.
find myself stuck, I change to a completely different genre. But I have my go-to artists, my go-to albums, and I just listen to them because they get you into that mindset and that mood, and that is wonderful to have stuff like that helps.
It's different, and I know, like, my wife thinks it's a little kooky that I can listen to music, and a lot of people do. She's not the only one, but they're like, because I read, like, this is a skill I didn't know other people didn't have until I was older. Like, as a kid in the 70s, I would go down and sit like on a beanbag in my parents' basement, and I have the big over-ear headphones on, like yours, like a little, like because mine are a little more, mine have the microphone, but like those big over-ear ones. I would lay down, and seriously, I would listen to Beach Boys 8 tracks and read and like listen to music and read like over and over. And this has just always been something my whole life I've done where I listen to music and I'm reading. So I'm listening to music with words and I'm reading. And that's just how it's always been. And so then when I started writing, the two things came together too inside the brain. And so other people are like, I need it deadly silent, or I only can listen to music like ambient music in the background or like whisper machines. And that's great. Everybody has their own thing. But for me, if it's silent, I'm not probably getting anything done.
If it's silent, it needs to be very silent for me. Otherwise, I need, the music.
Oh, so, like very silent. Like if there was like horns honking or something outside, that would be a distraction. You need to be like,
like soundproof room, or I need my music. Like it either needs to be completely like no noise, like my chair can't even squeak, or I need music. Yeah, it's
what's your playlist? What's the album, if you don't mind sharing? I'd love to know.
It's actually an album by a band called the Atlas Moth called Coma Noir.
I've never heard it.
You can look it up on Bandcamp, the website Bandcamp. It is very heavy, but it is also, it's like doom, sludge metal, stoner metal, but it is the vocals for the most part are distorted or whatever enough that I'm not hearing the words so much as I'm hearing the voice.
Because it's that. So it's
some of them, yeah. But then he also has a singer that comes in and he's very like low pitched and type stuff. And
like Danzig, like he's way down there.
Way down, almost lower than Glenn, but almost Peter Steele without being quite that low. But quite wonderful stuff. But then, like, if that's not working for me, I'll switch genres and put on like Rachel Yamagata, who is
I saw her just not that long ago. She opened for Matt Nathanson. Yeah.
I've seen her 3 times, and it is a religious experience to see that girl live, woman.
Yeah.
I saw her back before she was, back before even Happenstance release and stuff, and she was absolutely wonderful. Very small shows and stuff. But her new album, Starlit Alchemy, is absolutely great as well.
That's
Though
quite a bit different than the other stuff. That is a total 180.
my favorite stuff of hers is actually the second disc to Elephant's Teeth Sinking In with like Side Dish Friend um now I can't think of anything but
Yeah.
Side Dish Friend, but like it's like a 4 or 5 song EP second disc set for that, and those are like my favorite. But the song that really got me stuck on her was Under My Skin. It was the first song I ever saw her play. I was standing like 10 feet in front of her at this place called Elbow Room in Chicago, and I was like, she knows what she's doing, and I've just like loved her stuff ever since.
That's awesome.
But like it's like that or like really heavy metal.
That's
You know what I'm
amazing.
saying? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's I'm not crazy. So we have a few minutes left, and I have to
Yeah.
ask,
Sure.
are there tropes, like for me it's the genius child with the idiot parent? Are there any tropes that drive you absolutely angry, like send
Oh,
you into a
yes.
rage?
Yes. That's a yes. So I like that one though. There's two because I list myself like these are I'm writing YA books, but honestly, most of my readers, the people that like me the most are like boomers. Boomers seem to love this. Obviously maybe they're reliving their childhood in some ways, but I mean, that I feel like I'm writing young adult slash new adult novels, the characters are all between 16 and 22.
Yeah.
So they fall into that range. But I read a lot of YA too, and the two YA tropes that drive me up a wall. That is such a great question. My wife and I talk about all the time. The one that sort of has just become overdone, and it wasn't a trope when people first did it, is only teenagers can save the world. So, like in the first Hunger Games, it worked, right? Because it's a game. It's literally like
Yeah.
you're not saving the world. But then as the series goes on, you're like, only these children can save the world. Now I understand there are some books like that. I understand Lord of the Flies is about children, but they're not saving the world, they're saving their own lives, or they're, spoiler alert, not saving their life. So I'm all for that. Like that I get, but like only this special child can save the world, and you're the only one, and every adult around you is a doofus. That I can't. Like, listen, sometimes you need help. Sometimes the adults are the adults for a reason. Maybe you even just need a ride, right? Maybe there's that. So that one, but the one that drives me, and I get where that comes from, and I get why that is such a wish fulfillment in fantasy, and that works well in fantasy. But the one, no matter what genre it is, that pisses me off to no end is when they just don't tell each other things for no fucking reason. So there's not a good reason to keep a secret. Like there are reasons to keep a secret, right? There are reasons to keep a secret. Like I have to keep this from you because it could kill you. Like in Star Wars, there's a reason that Leia is kept a secret because she's the failsafe. Leia's the
Yeah.
failsafe. If Luke is not a secret. Luke is actually bait. They give him his own last name. His name is Luke Skywalker. He's not hiding from anybody. He's with his aunt and uncle. If they wanted to find him, they could have. But Leia is kept secret, right? That makes perfect sense. But when it's like, I don't want to tell you, I don't want to talk about that for no fucking reason, just so that it causes conflict later. And then the conflict, and I know like you need conflict in books, of course you do. But that trope, the YA trope of I just don't want to tell you for no reason, because that does not work. And it's like, don't want to tell your parents you're out drinking and you don't want to tell your parents, right? But don't tell your best friend. Like, if this person is your best friend, you would call them immediately and be like, holy shit, I was out drinking and this awful thing happened.
I'm going to say something controversial about that, and
Please.
I think you'll agree with me. But if writers do that simply to do it, it comes across as poor writing because they need to drive the story forward and can't think of a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And that could be me putting a noose around my neck, in
Right.
the industry. But to me, that's what it comes across as, because everything needs to have a reason to do it. We're running out of time, so I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And you don't have to go into huge detail. You're on death row because you've killed people. What's your last meal?
Oh my God. Wow. I was unprepared. Wow. I mean, I know it's totally lame. I would probably just have a pizza. I'm a vegetarian. I would probably I love a cheese. Just give me a cheese pizza. I'm a happy guy.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Cheese, maybe some mushrooms and onions, if that.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today.
that was
This has been
fantastic.
absolutely wonderful. You have been wonderful. And everyone who's watching, let us know your thoughts, and we will see y'all next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.